Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Rebecca Allen. I'm with the Million Vegan Grandmothers, and we are so fortunate today to have as our guest Robert Grillo. He's an author, a speaker, and an activist for sure. And he's the author of this Farm to Fable. He's also the director and founder of Free from Harm, and he writes articles for that. And then there's an incredible article in here, The Humane Hoax, which I think everyone should get if for that article alone. And there are a lot of good articles in here, but it has so many good things in it. So, welcome.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good to be here.
Very good. Now, how long have you been vegan? Let me just start with something like that, and or any part of how you got into this journey.
Sure. Yeah, I think it was in 2008 when I started really coming to terms with the reality of what the animal industries are like, and I knew there was something bad going on, but I had no idea. You don't know until you see it for your own eyes. It's just like any other injustice. You can hear about it in the abstract, and you can hear about it until you're blue in the face from as many different sources as possible. But for so many injustices, you really have to see with your own eyes, because that's when you have the opportunity to connect with the victims and say, "Oh my God, they're suffering just like we would." So my way of reacting to that was pretty immediate. It wasn't planned, it wasn't gradual. It was just I can no longer support these industries in good conscience. And then not only that, I have to do whatever I can to try to build awareness. At the time, I thought it was about just building awareness. Now I know it's about a lot of other things. But so yeah, that's kind of how things started. And that happened in like the 2008, 2009 phase.
I see. I am recalling that awareness part, thinking that, oh, if they just know, if my family just know, if my friends just know and I tell them, then everything will be all right. And I know many of us grandmothers have gone through that also. So,
Right.
and it's much more than that. It takes something else because of one of the things that you talk about, especially I think maybe especially in this book, but the complications of the marketing and the culture and the repeated lies that are going on. How did you become aware of all of those things that were
Hmm.
affecting us?
Well, I I uh I read a lot, and I love to I'm kind of fascinated by human nature, and I think when you become vegan, or you become aware of something that is largely hidden, to us, our society, you're fascinated and disturbed at the same time by how can this be so hidden, and what can we do to get people more aware and awake. And um, one thing that I've kind of come to learn more is how we're social animals, and how, even like you said, once we know something, we don't necessarily speak out, let alone act on it. Right?
Right.
So the process is one of, I think, adopting change through our social networks. There's a wonderful book by an author named Damon Santola, who wrote a book called Change, How to Make Big Things Happen. You may have heard of it.
Yes, I'm halfway through.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I'm not a scientist. I'm not into data. I'm not a data nerd at all. But the beauty of this book is that it actually makes a pretty solid scientific case for the grassroots, meaning that change happens on the periphery before it moves to the center, before it moves to the center of power. In fact, the influencers and the power holders are the last people to want to adopt this change because they like things the way they are. They're making money and they have power. They don't want to see things change because then that disrupts their share of power. So the fascinating thing, yeah, is how social networks work and how we need to feel, how we need to see others in our social network adopt something before we will consider safely adopting it for ourselves.
Right. So that's very good. I've been thinking about that too, about which social networks can I get into, um, and
Mhm.
and how to spread the message so that it's not just me going in there, it's a few of us talking at a time on the same topic. But in terms of something big like the Farm Bill, I think some of us begin to lose hope because that particular congressperson or senator is
Right.
already bought. They're in the dairy industry, or you know, they're bought into it. And so maybe there is a way we can, I mean, maybe a letter does help. Maybe more letters do help, but you're saying that it's grassroots.
Right. We have to come to a point where our letters and emails and calls will that fall on deaf ears. We have to decide what we're willing to do at that point. Are we willing to throw in the towel and say, well, I tried and they won't listen to me? Or are we going to have this attitude, which is a completely a grassroots thing, is that the power lies in the people. The people will not take no for an answer. They gave their power away. They consented to be governed by certain people who are now abusing their power and no longer representing us. No longer representing a food system that we can believe in. And so it's time to take our power back. And so the grassroots says that even though we have a very corrupt system, the way to change the way to shift power in our favor is a grassroots movement demanding the change we want. And that involves confronting power holders on that very corruption, exposing that corruption, even mocking it. There's some great examples of how in in Serbia, when the youth movement Optor was resisting against Milosevic, the dictator at the time, they used mockery and humor in so many creative ways, and it really got a lot of the public on their side because they were witty and smart. And Milosevic just looked like this really archaic dinosaur tyrant, and people were starting to realize, oh my God, we really need a change here. So we're kind of playing with humor and mockery of power holders too. Some of these people that are working on the Farm Bill that are literally negotiating $1.5 trillion bailout bill. That's what the Farm Bill is. It's nothing more. People are confused and intimidated by how am I going to approach this? It's really nothing more than a big funding bill for agriculture. And the huge mass majority of the funding goes to animal agriculture and those who raise crops to feed animals. The rest is minuscule. It's nothing. And all of the other things that they tout, like conservation programs, oh, we're going to put 3 million into, we're going to give grants to all these farmers to, because they're the best stewards of the land. No, they're not the best stewards of the land. And the conservation portion of the Farm Bill is tiny. Um, there are some things in the Farm Bill that we really support. We support protections for consumers,
Mhm.
protections for animals, of course, no matter how minuscule they might be, protections for the environment, protections for workers. Those are all good things, but they're tiny in comparison to the overwhelmingly negative effect of bailing out animal agriculture for things like killing billions of birds because of a bird flu pandemic. Instead of bailing out that industry, they could shift the funding to industries that don't produce, don't exploit animals, and we could start moving in a direction that was actually moving us away from all of these problems that animal agriculture creates.
Wow. That
I just went off on a huge tangent there, I
Oh, I'm
think.
so glad you did because I've been wondering about what kinds of things to say. I didn't know it was $1.5 trillion, and I always think I have to have the numbers exactly right, have the pie chart so I know how much is being spent there.
Hmm.
But the way you explained it, I think if we get a few people to go into our congressperson's office and say, this is ridiculous, we know what's happening here, that's a start. Is that right? And then another group goes into their
Yeah, we have a plan for how to escalate our activities in terms of engaging Congress people, because the Congress people are the people that are going to have to decide on this, to vote against it or for it. Right now, it's in committee. So these are Farm Bill Congress people that are working on crafting the bill and trying to get it passed in committee before they can then move it to a full Congress vote. And yes, exactly that. We do not have to be policy experts. I
right.
can't emphasize this enough. Every single person that is interested should be willing to have a voice in the future of their food system. And this affects every consumer, regardless of the fact that a lot of these farm bill people will say, oh, it's all about farmers and helping farmers. No, it's about helping consumers and the average person. These are the people who are suffering. Record food prices, record cost of living increases, cutting of programs that help them. I mean, terrible healthcare system. Consumers are suffering more than anyone in the greatest scale. So the farm bill has to be a people's farm bill. It won't be in this one, but we need to start getting that message to our Congress people that we can't accept this kind of farm bill where they have these so-called listening sessions and they go around the country and everybody in the audiences are ranchers and animal farmers. And of course they're going to tell you, if that's the narrow audience that you're going to get input from, you're going to end up with a farm bill that favors that industry.
Mhm.
But it's got to be a lot more representative than that.
That is excellent. Well, I am so looking forward to you speaking at VCOP and having a wider audience about this. Um, let's see, what would you say would be your worst fear and how we're going to get out of it? Or is that what you've just told us? That if it passes, that would be
Well, let's just say we're under no illusions that this current farm bill is going to be dramatically different than the one that came before it. The one thing that we're seeing is so the Democrats want more food stamp program. They want a lot more money in food stamps. The
okay.
Republicans want to cut that. They want to basically cut a lot of stuff that costs farmers and ranchers money, like animal welfare laws, environmental laws, and food stamps. They'd rather see the money go to big ag, basically.
Mhm.
Um, so our biggest fear is maybe we know that it's unlikely that any farm bill is going to pass this year. So things aren't going well between the two sides. They're probably not going to come up with something. Our biggest fear would be that we're not going to have big opportunities to get in front of them and the media, and that we're going to be shut out of the process. I'll just give you a really quick example. We went to the first major farm bill hearing in Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
and we got into the hearing room, which had only 60 seats. It's supposed to be open to the public. Everybody in that hearing room was either a member of the committee, Congress people, lobbyists, animal ag lobbyists for the most part, and members of the media, which of course we want the members of the media there, right? They have a right to be there. We want them to cover this stuff. But all industry insiders, there's no seats for the public. We literally waited 3.5 hours in line. Um, and then we finally decided if we're going to get in there, we're going to have to sneak in, past this big line when the door person is distracted. And that's exactly what happened. In a split second, the person was distracted and the five of us got in. And then we were able to stage our action and speak out. The only way you're going to get heard is if you speak out because they will not give you a chance to talk. So we spoke out, three of us, and we told them we wanted to see an end to animal agriculture subsidies, that they were corrupted by special animal ag interests, and that needed to end, and that it's time to transition to a slaughter-free plant-based food system before it's too late. And we got the message out, and we got it done with three different people. And we had Politico in the room, Bloomberg, The Hill, CNN, all the major news networks. So that was a success, but we're scared. Our big fear is that, are we going to get into the next one? With
Hmm.
all the obstacles they put up to try to keep the public out of this, are we going to get in there?
Right. Wow.
And we have to get in front of them in their spaces of power and where the media is covering it in order to be heard. Otherwise, we get lost in the emails and phone calls and we get nowhere.
Wow. Now, how would somebody get involved with you? Is that through your organization? How would somebody get involved if they want to help?
Yes. We sign people up at freefromharm.org,
Okay.
and there's a sign up button on the side, on the top, a couple different places. Get signed up, get on our weekly newsletter. We announce our workshops. We're going to have a new thing called office hours, where every week we have a couple of hours that are open to people that just want to call in and ask us how they can shape their actions and get more involved with the Farm Bill stuff and bird flu, which is, the reason why we're taking on these subjects is because they're in the news. We're interested in inserting ourselves in bird flu and other stories that are in the news that have a very good chance of being covered. And we have been able to get our message into the mainstream media. Um, Critical views of the industry. That's what we want. And even if they don't credit us, we still don't care, because as long as the mainstream media starts getting critical of this trajectory that we're on, and questioning things, that's what we want. That's a good start.
That is fantastic. I think that's where the hope and the plan for a new Planet B comes from.
It is, and it is happening. I am seeing it.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. Is there any final thing that you would like to say?
I'm good. I feel like I've done most of the talking, and I said my piece.
Well, I'm so glad to get to hear from you. Thank you again for coming in. I look forward to seeing you at VCOP. Thank you.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much, Rebecca.